the way people look at Mexicans doing hip hop is the way that Mexicans look at people calling Taco Bell authentic Mexican.
Fortunate to be on Earth at what I believe is like the Renaissance, the ability to sort of create our own destiny.
The Renaissance Podcast.
Welcome back, guys, to the Renaissance Podcast. You already know who it is. It's your boy Caesar.
Your boy Alex.
And my name's Alan Shiner. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We got a special guest.
Smoothvega, man.
Smoothvega.
One and only.
Viggity Vega, man.
No, yeah, it's the second time meeting you, man. We met you at our Truth event. Shout out to Up to Something Media.
Yeah,
Our
shout out
Truth.
to something, man. Ron Killings, man. We did an event with him during WrestleMania week.
Yeah, and hopefully
You know what I'm
he heals up.
Yeah, he's hurt, man. He hurt his knee, so he's recovering right now. But good dude right there.
Thanks,
No,
yeah,
man, we honestly we wanted to bring you just not for the sole reason, but wanted to pick your mind because obviously you're Hispanic, man. So being a mogul over here in the DFW area,
it's rare.
Obviously, we're starting a podcast here as Hispanics for Hispanic podcasts. You don't really see that right now going viral. Any Hispanic podcast.
There's very few, man. Actually, I know that there's a podcast in LA, the Brown Bag Podcast.
Yeah, Brown Bag
Shout out
Podcast.
to them.
Shout out
You
to
know what I'm
them.
saying? They're doing their thing. There's a handful of other people that are starting to grow, but you're starting to see it, but it's not enough. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
It's not enough. Yeah,
And it's certainly not like well-produced podcasts. Because I think that's one thing that I noticed about you guys' podcast. Like, as soon as I saw the Juan Velasquez clip, I saw the Alex Rincon clip, and I was like, yo, this is something I would love to do because it looks great. It's well-produced.
But you want to know the secret, though?
You
get that for sure, because ain't no one gonna have another Alan Shiner. Hey, you right about that, but you know what though? It's the quality of the
Don't gas
guest.
him up more than he already guessed.
Don't gas me up.
It just went like this.
Don't gas me up.
Yeah.
Don't
He
gas me
said,
up.
no, wait. No, yeah, you're right.
You're right.
I'll take that. But for real. At the end of the day, we get some good guests, but man, they deserve so much more. You know what I mean? Like, and then this person knows this person. I bet you, I know 5 people that know you already. You know what I mean? So exactly, we're so interconnected here in Dallas that we don't even realize it. And that's the beautiful thing about hearing the Renaissance Podcast, where so many folks can come in and they already know you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. And I think also like, these podcasts, are so important, at least the ones that are well produced. I always like to give the disclaimer, right? Because it gives the creatives an opportunity to tell their story.
Facts.
And there's a lot of people that have stories to tell. I'm sure you guys have, already experienced that. And, you learn and you're like, wow, I had no idea. So through this, hopefully we're able to tell some of my stories as well,
You deserve it.
And were you born and raised in Fort Worth?
Yeah, man. Funky Town.
Funky
Funky Town hoodie. I was like, I'm going to Dallas. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, y'all saw that tornado in the morning, bro? I was woken up to hail and shit.
We were just talking about this. You slept through the whole thing, right?
What?
No, I woke up.
I
woke up. As soon as I woke up, they're like, there's a tornado warning. I'm like, a tornado warning? They're like, or a watch. They're like, no, a warning. Like,
Actual warning. Yeah, man, because I was like that too. I was like, wait, is it an actual warning or are they just fucking around with us like every other year,
You live in Texas when it's December, it's about to be Christmas, and there's also a tornado.
It's the first time, isn't it? It's the first time in Texas or in Dallas where it's been like around.
Don't get me started with Texas weather, bro. That is just
but around
insane.
Christmas, I always remember it being around February and stuff.
February, yeah.
1 month
February,
away.
Ooh. But usually I've never seen it in December.
And I definitely have never seen it like first thing in the morning.
It's global warming.
Yeah, like
real.
it's usually like in the afternoon or the evening.
Oh, for real, right?
It was like, it was like 7 in the morning, like tornado.
Early as
warnings.
fuck.
Like,
Exactly. No, you're right, bro. About that. It was.
I didn't take it too serious, but then once I saw the videos on social media, I think like Grapevine got hit.
Exactly.
Yeah, you see
stupid
Sam's? Sam's Club or whatever. And,
yeah.
the roof is off.
Dang.
I saw some guy like the trampoline was going away, and he's like, "Oh no!"
And then
because the winds were so heavy and stuff. But I was like,
I think it was a Dallas TV, but
Yeah,
they
yeah,
edited it, and then he was flying away too. Bro, I love those edits from Dallas TV.
We should have got like a graphic of the tornado and put like California could never.
For real.
Hey man, one time I remember this vividly because it was the craziest day of my life. Usually after school, if I would miss the bus, I would have to walk home.
Yeah.
And I remember getting out of school and it started hailing. And then out of nowhere it started raining. And then the sun came out. And then I know we started hailing again.
For sure.
And I'm like, bro, what the fuck? I was like,
Fucking
dude,
Texas.
I had to get under a house every single time that shit happened.
Hey,
like, bro, that's Texas weather at its finest. And this was within a span of 1 hour, bro.
I believe it. I believe it.
I'm gonna get it started real quick because I'm really interested. For someone that I enjoy live music so much. Live venues, they're the greatest thing on earth. You being a promoter, tell me the ones that were the best, and then which one was just like the worst, man, that you hate.
You know, for so long, I hated the word promoter. You know, I used to like go, man, that word just makes me want to take a bath.
What would you define yourself as then?
But I am a promoter. I mean, now more as a music executive.
Oh,
But you know, that's like a proper term for like, you know, everything I do, because I kind of consider myself
damn. You went corporate, Vega.
Yeah, I sold out, right? And I was like, no, I consider myself like a Swiss Army knife. Like I do a lot of things, but in regards to live events, like, you know, to your point, like I love doing live events, and I've had the opportunity to work with so many artists.
Talent, man.
So many artists. And I've booked so many national recording acts.
Exactly.
Seen them grow over the years. But to answer the question, the best, I have a soft spot for Joyner Lucas, because I was there from the beginning of his career. So, you know, being able to book him early on and work with Joyner, that's just something that I'm always going to hold near and dear to my heart. Obviously, Royce the 5'9", Joe Budden, those are guys that, like, for different reasons, mean a lot to me. And then Nipsey Hussle. I think Nipsey Hussle, being able to do his tour, the Victory Lap tour, like, that was really, really cool, because, you know, I didn't get the opportunity to work with like a Tupac or a Biggie, and I really hold Nipsey in that high regard. You know what I'm saying?
And you never knew that was going to be such that level of magnitude.
No, man, I didn't. And I think the last show, I think, would be Genuine. I know that sounds kind of crazy, right? But like growing up, he was my favorite R&B artist. I'm 37 years old. So to be able to work with him was kind of like a dream come true, right?
Yeah.
Like, man, I really grew up listening to you. But, you know, I'll say that, like, just being a Mexican-American, being able to be in that world, it's like you talk about the podcast world, it's even rarer in that world. Like,
that Mexican-American.
Yeah, there's like no minorities whatsoever.
For real,
in
man.
any of the like live venues. Like, there's no like there is, but like they're not like the general managers. They're not the decision makers. And
I'm about to go Kanye on me, bro. We can't say the word, bro.
Oh yeah, you're right. And then we go a step further with the agencies. It's like really, really complicated. But in terms of the worst,
dang, what is the worst? Expose them, trash,
let's get to the
horrible. Why did I work with you?
man, that's a pretty easy one to answer, right? There's two. The first one would be Joel Santana. By far the worst person that I've ever had the opportunity to work with. And before you ask me why, I'll give you the answer why. Just didn't seem to want to be there. You know, one of those artists that wanted to do the bare minimum. And I'm real big. Like, if I book you, I'm not expecting you to go over and beyond, but I want you to do your job to the best of your capabilities. I didn't feel like that was the case at all with him.
Yeah. Not much to say in that one. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, just a bad attitude.
Yeah.
You know, bad attitude and entitlement, right? And you know, let me go a little bit further. He was scheduled to do a meet and greet at the end of the night after the show. And he had a real, like, I don't want to fucking do it attitude. So he was just trying to, like, get out of there. And that, to me, is where I took it personal, because now those are my customers that that pay top dollar, work their ass off, that are excited to meet you. And you're just like, I don't care. You know what I mean? And he's getting compensated for it, may I add.
Yeah.
And then the other one was...
Dang, there's two. Oh, crap.
The other one was the rapper of the game, the West Coast rapper of the game.
No way.
Now, the
The
game...
best storyteller.
Yeah, now, the game, I will say this. It wasn't because of him. So I can't really say it's because of him. It's because of his managers. Managers Whack 100. And Whack 100, like, he was like... You ever see that special that Cat Williams, like, I'm Mad at Breakfast? You ever
I'm mad at breakfast.
You like, you know, so the gangster people that are like super gangster, that they're mad at breakfast, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that's like mad at breakfast. Like, yo, why are you mad at? Like, you were just mad. He was just mad and angry and just wanted to be aggressive, and so he tried to fight me behind the scenes.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, he's like, hey, he's not gonna go on stage. There's like a backstory to it, but that experience was probably at the time something I needed to go through. But it was definitely.
Was it your younger days as a promoter?
2016. It was probably the early inception of my company, and I think he probably realized it, but it was unnecessary.
I get you.
It was unnecessary. He was like wanting to be hella aggressive and like, hey, dude, come on, man. There's fucking 1,500 people inside the building that are ready to watch it perform. Why are we having this conversation? But
yeah,
I'll never forget the disrespect, and you know, it was probably the lowest I've ever felt. in regards to being not just a promoter, but really a man. Like, yo, like this guy really like fucking, because, you know, I had to bite the bullet. Like, if I engage in an argument with this guy, the show doesn't happen. And, you know, I have to refund people their money, so I had to take it on the chin.
Vega, that's rare. Being the bigger person, it's rare because sometimes, you said it yourself, they're gonna say, "Oh, he didn't find me. He's a pussy."
Yeah, well, no, there's definitely some rumors that circulated after that that I was scared and that I was shook.
Nah,
I was more offended by the idea that I couldn't do what I wanted to do. Even if I would have lost, I would have been like, it would have been worth it.
Yeah. You see, those people,
like, fuck it, let's go.
They don't see the big picture, bro. You see the big picture. You don't even got to see it from, you know, a mile away. You can see it from 500 miles away. And it's unfortunate, but that's how life is. If you take care of yourself, things are going to, you know, come and follow.
But you know what? To be honest with you, like, we're overlooking the one thing that is the most important thing in any field, which is professionalism.
Yeah.
These guys, in my opinion, you know, at the time, the manager of the game, in my opinion, wasn't professional.
We grow.
Joel Santana at the time, I mean, that was prior to him going to prison, wasn't professional. So I've had, like, over the years now, like, now that, you know, obviously I'm more established as a buyer and as a promoter, I've had people come up to me like, hey, you know, like, you know, I got some tours that, you know, would you be interested in buying? I'm like, who? They're like, Joel Santana. I'm like, nope.
Lesson learned.
but think about that. Like, had he done right by me in 2016?
More, yeah.
Easy.
We might have been still working in 2022. Yeah. So you got to be careful of what, you know, bridges you burn, because you never know when you're going to cross them again.
Damn.
Do you think it's been harder for you, especially being Hispanic and like trying to build your company up and during like through the music industry?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I mean? I think that you kind of, it's weird, right? Because like we're the majority minority, right?
Yeah.
And we also experience a lot of the hardships that other minorities face, except people don't realize it. Like, you know, growing up, I'm Mexican, American, first generation, may I add.
Nice.
My dad was born in Mexico. My mom was born in Mexico. But the things that we don't talk about and that we don't document, you know what I'm saying? Because we just, I don't know if it's because we don't complain, but like, you know,
I think
like,
that might play a factor.
Yeah, I was about to say that's a big factor, especially Hispanics are raised to not complain, to just work.
Like we're just like, we just got to work through it, right? But like I've witnessed, you know, I remember being about 5 or 6 years old and seeing.
You still remember that? God damn, bro.
Because there's certain things that get engraved in your memory.
Don't forget,
You stick.
I remember I was with my dad and his friends, and we were in his pickup truck, and there was some white guys that were driving by. I'm like, you fucking wetbacks.
Dang.
And experiencing that and understanding, like, you know, we experience our own form of racism, right? I think for me, like going into the spaces, like especially like being a talent buyer and, you know, attempting to buy shows, like it's a white world. Like I don't mean any offense by that. It's just the reality of it, right?
Yeah.
The white privilege is very real. And until you start really kind of going into those spaces where now you are buying against some of those people. You know what I'm saying?
Ooh, damn.
Let's go. It gets a little bit weird. You know what I'm saying? Because I mentioned it, like, you know, going across the country, and I've been here in California, New York. I've been everywhere. There's not really a lot of Latin representation in some of these buildings, and definitely not in some of these music venues. You know, general managers.
So how did you fight that? How did you just sliver your way into such a white business? White industry, really?
Well, I mean, in terms of the decision makers, right? Because the culture is ran by minorities, right?
Yeah, the culture.
Damn, say that again, bro. For real.
But in terms of that, like you would say, just kind of learning the lingo and understanding, like, you know, like one thing that I've always been really good at doing is studying. You know, like I grew up watching a lot of documentaries.
The History Channel.
Well, my History Channel was VH1, Behind the Music and shit, right? Or like, you know, even like documentaries in general, like, and hearing certain verbiage that people would use and realizing like, okay, this is how to like navigate. This is what makes them respond and how they respond. And even, you know, as of recent, being in Deep Ellum, I'm one of the few promoters that has access to, or at least one of the few independent promoters that has access to certain rooms and that's allowed to book urban music in these rooms. So I'm looked at as like I don't want to say a gatekeeper, but like, you know, someone that's opinions highly valued in the space. And when you start talking about that, I was like, you know, I was talking to somebody the other day and I was like, hey, you know, I had ran into Yella Beezy backstage at a show.
Nice.
And it wasn't a pleasant experience because they weren't letting him park there. I'm not going to say the venue on camera, right?
Say it.
But it's a Deep Ellum, right? And they weren't letting him park. And he was like, why is it that every time I go to this venue, they always give me a hard time, but they don't give me a hard time anywhere else I go? And it could be any other venue in Dallas. It's always this venue. Do you work here? I said, I don't work here, but I work here. Like, you know, I'm one of the few people that does work here as a promoter. And I said, man, you already know what it is. He's like, what, the beef? You think it's the beef? Like, that I was like, bro, it has nothing to do with the beef, bro. Like, bro, they're white.
Yeah.
And like, you know, that was my way of saying, like, it's a race thing, bro.
Damn.
And I speak the language enough to where I'm trusted as a minority to be able to connect with the other side, the urban side, whatever that may look like.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also whitewashed enough, I guess.
No wonder why you call Smoothvega.
You're the great middleman.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of knowing how to like communicate because
exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it shouldn't be that way. I mean, it shouldn't be that way in 2022, but you'll be surprised how many venues still look at hip hop.
Exactly.
Specifically, like it's the 80s NWA fucking movies and there's about to be a riot. You know what I mean?
But at the end of the day, you're paving the way for people who, next generations that are going to try to follow your steps, you know, and then now they see what you've done and they grow from it. Because at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure you wish for somebody to above you.
I don't think so, Caesar.
What do you mean?
But I think he's been very successful with the shows
for sure.
that he's done. So naturally, you know, as much as they hate it, they like getting paid too.
But you're missing the point, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Man, I can relate because being in corporate America, as a young individual, shit, doesn't matter what color you are. If you're young and you're in corporate, you got lots to prove. But then whenever you're doing so much better than the fucking 50-year-old that's been there for 20, 30 years, damn, who's that motherfucker, right? So that's why I feel like a lot of folks seeing you where like, you know what? This guy does it. This guy gets it done. This guy can accomplish so much. That's why we won't even touch him.
You know what? Both of you guys make points. I think to his point, you know, there are people that are older that have felt threatened by my presence because
shit, for real.
They're like, oh crap.
The old farts.
Exactly.
This guy seems to be, well, you know, I used to say, hey man, I'm contemporary, which is more current. You know, that doesn't mean
contemporary.
That doesn't mean that I'm like the you know, I don't know everything.
I would call it relevant.
Well, I mean, you can say that up to a certain extent, but like, I don't know the new music like that. Like some of the new artists that are coming in, I'm not as in tune with them guys, but I understand marketing and promotion. And I also understand how to move my people. And, you know, specifically the Hispanic audience, right? But I think when you also look at it, the idea of me being kind of the first of my kind, there's a lot of truth to that. Like,
for sure.
I don't want to toot my own horn, but toot, toot.
Yeah, man. Toot it. Toot all you want to.
I just wasn't like, there was nobody like me before me in regards to like.
I don't think there's going to be anyone else like you. That's the thing.
I mean, I can't say that. I mean, you know, I would like to believe that I'm going to leave
that's why you become an influencer and quote unquote,
open the doors for,
and not the influencers, these fake influencers that don't really influence anything, but like a real influencer who inspires the next generation. Like, look, he did it. Why can't I do it? You know, it's easier to spark somebody. We're older, so we might not get it, but a younger kid that sees him as like, oh, he's Hispanic, he can do this. All right, let me try to do that or follow that footsteps.
Yeah, because you don't want to put a ceiling on anything. But I will say that through my work and my body of work and what I've been able to do, I will say that there's 100%, 1,000% of a chance that I've already done that and I've already influenced people to start doing their own events, whether it be because they were inspired by me or they were mad that I didn't book them and they wanted to start their own thing and compete against me.
They said, fuck you.
You know what I'm saying? Like, but like they saw me as a blueprint of someone that was like, hey, that guy didn't complain. He just went out and made his own lane.
And that's key right there. Influencing anybody around you. If you're not influencing someone for whatever the hell you're doing, what are you doing talking to that individual?
Well, I mean, there's a bigger purpose in all of this, right? The bigger purpose is to like leave a legacy behind, right? For sure. You know, of course I have kids. Of course I want my kids to be proud of me, but at the same time, growing up, I didn't want to do anything else. I was too short to play basketball. I was not athletic enough to play football. I felt like, you know what I'm saying, I sucked at baseball for the most part. Yeah. So like when I really became passionate about music, I was like, this is all I want to do. And so I set my mind at it and I never tried to do anything else.
For sure, man.
Would you ever inspire to have your kids follow those same footsteps, or like the company that you're building is it falls down to your kids and they take care of it?
That's a great question.
As much as they see it, like as much as you see it valuable, to them be as valuable as it is to you.
I mean, I would love for them to take like common interest, right? But I think that's something that they have to make the decision of.
Yeah.
Because as of right now, like I'm not cool. To them, I'm not cool. I'm just dad, right? You know, like of course I'll do cool stuff for them every so often, right? You know, being that my son's a wrestling fan and I have relationships with some of the guys in WWE, he's benefited immensely. Like to the point where it's like, dude, like you need to chill out. Like you're getting front row tickets to everything all the time. And you know, like he's bugging me about going to an event next month. I'm like, bro, like you've already used like all our favors, but
real,
you know what I'm
right.
saying? But him actually eventually inheriting the company, I think that's gonna have to come with time. You know what I mean? Because right now they don't have that interest. And I would love, if all else, to show them like, okay, maybe you don't take over the company, but let me at least teach you about entrepreneurship so you at least know how to make your own money.
So then let me ask you this. Have you ever met someone that kind of reminded you of yourself in any way?
No.
That's
never.
That's
like
I'm saying.
It's very like rare where I'll meet people that they'll have like maybe one trait that I have. Like, man, that guy kind of reminds me of a younger me. Like the artist that I manage, there's bits and pieces that remind me of myself and her. But to the degree of what I do, there's absolutely no way.
Yeah.
I don't know that I even can register all that I actually do.
And that's the thing I say about why I was asking you about if you wanted your kids to follow your footsteps or inherit your company, is because a lot of we say, well, that, but we say a lot of these like it's monopolized by white people, but then again, they know how to pass their companies to their kids, you know?
Yeah.
And their kids take as much care of it as they did, you know? So for some reason, I feel like you're pretty much going to be the first of your generation to do it.
100%.
If it doesn't start with you, then who's gonna start with, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what we have to do.
And that's what we're trying to also do.
And it's
you
a
know?
good way of how you put it, in the way of you're not forcing it on your kids, because sometimes whenever you force things on people, they're just, man, I ain't
they're gonna
do
kick
that.
I mean, I've done that playing around with them. Like I'll fuck
Yeah.
with them and I'm like, hey, you know, I walked into my daughter's room recently and I had a Premier Live hoodie and I'm like, here, it's time for you to take over the family business. And she's like, get out of here, you're goofy, right? Like, but it's just like, you know, it's not what she wants right now.
Yeah.
Right now,
I've told her like, hey, you know, I want you to get to a point where when you're 15 or 16, maybe you're not quote unquote a concert promoter, but at very least, hey, you're throwing a party, you know, a high school party, and you're charging people at the door, and we'll secure your talent and we'll turn it into a concert. And guess what? You make all that money and there's your car for the year.
The next Miley Cyrus.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I want them to at least know and be aware that they don't have to work for somebody if they don't want to.
I think that's just the dad in you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean,
for
I
sure.
would love to see them, you know, maybe not be their own bosses because, you know, as they develop their own personality traits, they, you know, like I said, it's just going to take time.
But that's a blessing they have too, that they don't even know, because who wouldn't want a dad to show them their entrepreneurial side? Like that stuff that they're not going to teach us at school whatsoever, you know? So who wouldn't want that? And obviously they don't know that what they have, the blessing they have. But it is something that we definitely as Hispanics should change. Because if we don't change that, then I don't think we're ever going to evolve. Which was also what I was going to ask you, because obviously you're a lot into the music scene with Hispanics. But why do you think, like, especially in hip hop, like that barrier of Hispanics becoming like that A-list rappers, you know,
The
has
Bad
never
Bunnies.
been broken? That has never
Shit,
been
I
broken.
mean, you know what? I mean,
Especially in the English
what
side.
we're talking
I'm
about,
English side.
Bad Bunny's completely
Yeah,
discluded
Bad
from this
Bunny is
conversation.
you're just saying reggaeton. I'm talking about hip hop.
Yeah, because you know, obviously he's the number one streaming artist in the last 2 years, and this year, last year,
Hip hop.
Yeah, but I'm talking about hip hop.
He's talking specifically, like, you know, when you think of like hip hop, you think Kendrick Lamar, you think J. Cole, you think Drake. You don't think, you know,
That's
Juan Sanchez, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Or
Yeah.
whatever, Jose del Barrio, you know
I
what I'm
mean,
saying?
what do you think who are the biggest names in Hispanics
we'll
that are
s-
like really making it out there like that?
I think we'll stop first and say why.
Why?
I think that the bar has always been relatively low. And I think that from a skill set standpoint, you know, I've met tons of artists over the years. And I've heard of tons of artists over the years. And there's a lot of artists that are skilled enough, definitely. But when you talk about some of the mainstream artists that have made it on the Hispanic side, like it hasn't always been like a high bar. You know what I mean? So when we even look at like the success that SPM had, you know,
Damn, for real.
it still continues to have up to this day, which is very weird to me because he's been gone for about 20 years,
It's
but
crazy.
he's still like streaming at an extremely high volume.
I think his impact to me is as much as to Hispanics is as much as Tupac it was for Black culture.
No, and I don't disagree with you, you know, and this is the reason why. Look, people ask me the SPM argument, like, why was SPM like as big as he was? Because, you know, I've been to California and people in California, you know, they're not from here. So they'll ask the question. I'm like, well, let me simplify this for you. You know, he was first and foremost the right artist at the right time. Let's start there.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't a lot of people prior to him here in Texas. Mind you, Texas is one of the biggest, you know, demographics in the world. You know, Houston and Dallas being two of the top 6 in the United States. So let's start there first and foremost. So from a numbers game, it's already built in.
Yep.
But then you go and you look at the way he branded himself. Like it was SPM, South Park Mexican. I think him integrating the name Mexican into his name played a big part in people connecting and it resonating with people because we want to be represented and we want to be able to identify with somebody. And it has to be easy to digest. A lot of times it's not easy to digest. But then you go in and then you go a step further and you go into the actual music. And when we actually dig into the music, in my opinion, his music was just technically advanced enough for people to be like, ooh, he's above the bar. He's above the average. He's you know, he's lyrical.
Yeah.
To the people that were accustomed to hearing people that weren't lyrical, but he was dumbed down enough for people to enjoy what he did. So he was very easy to digest. And I think that's the reason why you don't always see a lot of, you know, Mexican-American artists connect to that degree because you either have one or the other. You either have an artist that's extremely skilled, that's trying to show that the lyrical miracle, super acrobatic, you know, like let me show you all the verbal, just whatever, you know, philosophy, apostrophes, whatever. And it's not easy for the average, you know, Mexican-American to digest. Not to say that there's a one-size-fits-all Mexican, but you know what I mean? This is the audience that we've traditionally come to know, right?
Yeah.
And then you have the artists that are just not good enough. You know what I mean? Like, so it's one or the other, right? And I think that's where you got to find the balance. But I mean, I think that answers that question right there. You know, as far as why we haven't.
And I don't know if maybe I don't know if I have. It's not an idea, but it's kind of like a conspiracy of like, you know, how they create like they say Lil Nas X is like a
industry baby.
You know, I don't think there's been an industry baby created by his like somebody Hispanic.
No?
An industry plant, industry
baby,
plant.
isn't that the song?
That's the baby.
I mean, we've seen.
And over here repeating it, industry plant.
in the last
you don't
10
think there's been one?
No, I wouldn't say that. But over the last 10 years, we have seen like an influx of, you know, Mexican-American artists get signed. Obviously, like Cap G, someone that I work with. Cap, you know, he was signed to Atlantic Records, signed pretty early on. Cap, you know, obviously went platinum, had a platinum single, had success. One can argue whether or not, you know, he's where he was at a few years ago. It doesn't matter. You know, we saw in real time this guy that could have success, and he was Mexican. Now, again, you know, going back to the argument of like the music, right? He was trap rap. So people were like, oh, he's not Mexican enough, or he's trying to be black. And
you're like falling between a line where it's like,
it's a thin line.
You're not black, and then the Hispanics is like, he's not Mexican enough to.
Well, I mean, you've seen the George Lopez special, right? When somebody's doing good, you know, he's like, you know, whenever I'm doing good, they're like, oh, you think you're badass, huh? Yeah. Right? Like it's very hard to like be accepted by all. You know, when Oscar De La Hoya was having the success of his career, he wasn't Chavez, right? You know, like everybody gets compared. It's like you're not Mexican enough, or because you're too American, and then to the Americans we're not Mexican enough. It's a real weird game to play.
Yeah,
and I think Hispanics have always been that way. You know.
And like we're just real like
that set of mind.
Like it's real prideful because even like in California, like they really look at Texas like we're not, you know, we're not.
Hispanic.
Like, well, whatever, bro.
But honestly, I think it's changing, especially that mentality of like not supporting.
Yeah.
I honestly feel like it's changing, and it's changing with this new generation where we're a lot more supportive to Mexican artists or anybody that's going like that. I think we were talking about behind the scenes or before the podcast started. Like you say, very skillful, and when you've seen a lot of skillful artists. The first time I saw Snow the product, where we're mentioning that you've been on her for quite a few times.
Yeah.
I barely met her through. It was a Bizarrap. I don't know if you've ever
Yeah.
seen if you've seen her video or with Bizarrap. And like, because I've seen his videos for a while now. And when I ran into her video, I was like, bro, yo, who is this chick? Like, what the fuck? She's crazy. Like, she was going off in that video. And I was like, how does she not get so many? Like, why is she not like a A-list or like a top tier rapper? You know, she should be because she has the skill to be.
You know what?
I mean, that music video got a lot of views.
I'll say this, like, you know, you might as well hit record because this is gonna be the soundbite right here, man. Like, I'm very. It's a little biased whenever people ask me about another product because the truth is that I have known her since 2008, despite our differences. You know, 14 years I've known her and I've seen her grow. You know, like I knew her whenever she lived in a 1-bedroom apartment in Fort Worth.
Damn.
To where she's at now, and to be honest with you, like it's. You know, like we talked about, you know, why haven't Mexican artists made it in hip hop or like, you know, A-lister? But one can argue already, like, per her success, like I feel she's made it. And I feel that it's
honestly.
And I feel like it's very hard to dispute it now where you look at the track record, right? Because it's very, you know, I could be straightforward here, right? Like I think, you know, we talk about the skill level of other artists, and with her, like she exemplifies, she checks all the boxes.
Checks all the boxes, word flow, everything, changing it from English to Spanish. I'm like, bro, I haven't seen an artist do that ever. You know, like changing like maybe I've seen it, but like I mean, like just changing the languages, like from Spanish to English, as smooth as she does.
Well, and I don't even want to like limit it because I think a lot of times we make it like she's the best woman, but like you might make the argument now when we're talking current day in regards to Mexican hip hop artists, possibly ever. You know that she's on pace to be that and do that. And I'll go a step further, right? Because you could talk music, you could talk about culture impact, but then we're talking box office versus box office, right? As a independent Mexican woman, right? Let's throw all that out there. I'm a promoter. I know what artists sell. I know how many tickets they sell. She's selling more tickets than a lot of artists. Not a little bit of artists, a lot of artists. And we're not talking Mexican artists.
Exactly.
Now. We're talking about all genres. We're talking about all races. We're talking about artists that people deem to be hot.
Exactly.
In certain markets, like in a lot, let me rephrase that because I don't want to limit it. A lot of markets, she's doing 2,000, 3,000 tickets. You know, I know here she sold out House of Blues.
Damn.
But here's the kicker. She's been doing this now independently for a long period of time, and she's been touring at least 10 years. She started 10 years ago, maybe in 400 or 500 cap rooms. Now she's selling out that degree. There's not only within the culture, right, which it goes without saying, right, but when you talk about other women artists, there's not women artists that are selling as many tickets as her.
Ain't no way.
So credit where credit is due. Like that's unprecedented and unheard of.
Yeah.
And she deserves her flowers for that. I think the only counter argument to I guess what people would say is that they want more from her. I know as a fan, as someone that has known her, did I just call myself a fan?
Yeah.
Like as someone that wants more from her, I think because I've known her story, I think she can give more, and maybe she will give more. And I think when she's able to start unpeeling some of those layers and starts giving us more on a deep level, she will be the female Tupac.
Damn.
For our culture, especially, you know.
Nah, for sure, man.
And she might already be.
She might already be because I became a fan from that video, and after that, I'm like, I gotta follow this chick because she's Hispanic, and if there's somebody that's gonna make it, we're gonna follow her, especially as Hispanics. There's no way we can support without our following, you know, our checking up on the music they drop and stuff. You know, that's the best way we could do it
And when you talk about like
and
hard,
promote it. Yeah.
well, you think about it too. Like, there's a lot of hardships that go into being, Mexican. Like I mentioned to you guys, but being a woman on top of that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And all the other obstacles that she may endure. And I'm saying that from a place where we haven't always gotten along. You know what I mean? But I got to recognize what it is, and that's the truth.
Exactly. And you hit that point where, like, if you look into Mexican American, just that sentence first.
Yeah, Mexican, just Hispanic American.
Well, we're talking about a specific one, though, right now, and us including. So, Mexican American, we're first Mexican, but we're always going to be American no matter what. Just like how we said that the most talented rappers, they're probably the ones that are, not spitting so crazy. We know you're talented, bro. Chill a little bit, right? And then we want that artist that's talented. But then if he doesn't have any talent, why are we even listening to you? So we got to have a good mix of, we got to have that Mexican first, throw it a little bit there, but never forget that you're American too.
Yeah, I mean, look,
good balance has to be done.
I'll say this, like, King Little G is one of the artists over the last 10 years that's had a lot of success as a Mexican American artist. Him being from LA, the truth is he looks like a cholo. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But he's talented, he's skilled, he gets a lot of support. And I feel like the Americans may not embrace him as much because he looks like a cholo.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But, he's had success. And
exactly.
He could still do really well on shows because he has us.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying, bro. We got to embrace that Mexican first because you're going to look dumb if you don't.
Well, I think it's the sound too, because when you think about it, like the sound of Mexican hip hop or Hispanic hip hop is way different from black hip hop.
Exactly.
And you can tell the difference even without even looking at a music video, without even looking at the person that's doing the music video or singing or rapping, sorry. You can tell the difference between black and Hispanic hip hop.
You want to know
I think the Baby, I don't know, like the Baby is one of the, and then Outkast Shades, all those rappers that are coming up from Houston and stuff that are Hispanic. Honestly, if you hear them on the like random song somebody's playing, you can't tell if they're Hispanic or black or anything.
Or that Mexican OT. No, I agree with you. And I think that, look, this is a perspective that I've given for a long time. Me and my friend, had this conversation over 10 years, and it's a harsh reality.
Mm-hmm.
But when we're talking about hip hop, I've always said this, and I've probably said this in like 5 or 6 interviews now, that the way people look at Mexicans doing hip hop is the way that Mexicans look at people calling Taco Bell authentic Mexican food.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We just know it's not authentic. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, you could like the white people, like, let's go get some Taco Bell. We need some Mexican food. But that bitch, that ain't Mexican. And I feel that's the way a lot of people look at people that do hip hop.
Yeah.
When we're kind of looked at as the guests and the outsiders, and to a certain extent, rightfully so. But we have a place, and I think there's a lot of emulation and a lot of mimicking. And sometimes when you hear guys like, I wouldn't say D-Baby and that Mexican OT per se, but artists that kind of sound more urban, you know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes it could come off like, hey, bro, like, and whether I agree or disagree with the perspective, right? You're trying to sound like another artist. You're trying to
Facts.
sound that way. Like, I don't feel that you naturally talk that way. You know what I mean? Like, but it's a culture thing, and that's also like,
For real.
I've been on Clubhouse, I've been in all these debates where you'll see like the California versus Texas debate, and a lot of the California people, because they're real fucking SA Cholo straight, LA culture, LA culture rap, right?
Yeah.
And Texas isn't like that. Houston has a real like,
It's established.
it's not even established. It has that kind of that hood feel to it, right? Like, you got these guys like, they're trap rappers.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big thing, that the wave of trap music kind of makes us sound the same, And I don't know if you have you heard people say this, that like we're maybe culture watching, like from the Hispanic side?
I wouldn't say that I've ever heard that, but I could still understand the perspective. You know what I mean? It's like, whoa, hold on. I just heard this Little Baby. Well, I just heard this The Baby. I just heard this, you know what I'm saying?
Lil' Kim.
Young Dolph or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And next thing you know, everybody that's coming in, Kevin Gates, everybody sounds like them.
Yep.
And it's like, it could be perceived as that, but I don't think I've ever really heard that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's a
I'm
problem.
talking about
though.
more like in like not black on black artists, but I'm talking about Hispanics trying to sound that way, because you mentioned like how Cap G was on that Atlanta trap music, and they kind of came at him, or like they were telling him that he sounds too much like anybody
it's
from
fucked
Atlanta,
up, man. And it's so
So it's
fucked up
like-
because I've got a chance to know him, and like I know, like I've seen him talk to his mom. Like, trust me, he's very fucking Mexican. You know what I'm saying?
But we grew up with like he grew up with all his
he grew up in Atlanta.
African American friends. So it's
Yeah.
like it's not really culture fortune when you grow up in that environment. It's you're pretty
Right.
much brothers at the same time.
And back to your point of like how you talked about Clubhouse and the debates of Cali and Texas. I feel like with Cali, they're really segregated in the sense of like the Mexicans stick with the Mexicans, blacks stick with the blacks. And then they come here to Texas and they see like we all kind of get along.
Yeah.
And then
Yep.
Yeah, I
it kind
never
of
thought about
shocks
that.
it kind of shocks them to that sense of like, wait, I thought you were just doing this because you
You
want to
want-
sound like this. Okay, you actually live with and interact and grow up with these people and stuff like that. It's like, but this is my friends, the homies. Like,
It's the never-ending debate of the N-word, right? Like, you know, obviously there's people that get offended by that word, as they should, because I would feel some type of way if all of a sudden the word wetback was like a common use term, right?
Mm.
But it's a sensitive word to people. But growing up where I grew up from, like, I didn't look at that word in any other. I didn't look at it with a negative light. That was a term of endearment. You were my, you know what? You know what I'm saying?
My
Like,
brother.
that was that was the way we worded
Mhm.
it. And in Texas, that's what it means to us. But
Exactly.
you go somewhere else.
you go to
You go to
California,
Cali.
man, I see people talking about it on there all the time. Like, yo, man, why y'all using the N-word, man?
Yeah.
Y'all Mexicans, y'all are
Mm.
disgrace. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's how we talk down here. That's our culture. Now, whether or not it's right or it's wrong, like, hey, you
That's
know
a
what? That's up for debate. That's perspective based at that point. But I can say I've never viewed that term in a way to degrade somebody.
Degrade.
I've always used that word as a way to be like, yo,
Never derogatory. Yep.
that's my dog.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
and when you think about it, when you say that, and that's why I'm saying the differences between Hispanic, like listen to a Hispanic hip hop music and African American hip hop music, it's different. Like kind of like in Cali, but over here in Texas, the baby sounded the same as any African American artist
From Houston,
because
the
they're
lingo
mixed.
and all that.
Again, they're like we grew up with each other, so it's
Yeah.
like that automatically is gonna make our hip or music or the way we love something is the same,
But you know what though? I feel like it's time. Smoothvega, I feel like it's time for Texas to take the lead, and we're like, oh, go to Hollywood, go to Cali. Nah, come to Texas, join our culture.
I feel like there is a surge of
Exactly.
Mexican rappers coming out of Texas.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. And they're having success. I mean, it's all based on what you deem success, right? You know, some of these guys are, deeming on, social media likes and views and, how many followers they have. And that's a vanity. That's a vanity metric, right? But at the end of the day, like, we'll see as years progress where they stand in all of this. Because when we're talking about, the way that it's evolved from like SPM to like D-Baby,
Yeah.
a lot has changed, but there's still loyalists that still love that traditional, like dumbed down, like it's very easy to digest Mexican hip hop.
Exactly.
And there's always going to be a market for that.
And then not even in the music industry too. You look now in the movie industry. Now with the new movie, the Avengers movie, Black Panther.
Yeah.
With the
yeah.
first Mexican like pretty much actor to headline a Marvel movie.
Yeah, that was dope.
It's dope. It's seeing something that you've never seen before. Like watching the movie, I was like, bro, this is crazy. Like I was so inspired by watching a Mexican, like somebody looking like you, actually being in a movie theater and having those superpowers, And I never really got it whenever Black Panther came out, when African Americans were making it a big deal about how they finally feel represented in a big screen, And it's like I finally saw it, I finally felt it, where it's like, oh shit, somebody is out there that looks exactly like me,
I mean, you know what? And I've been like, I try to always, support whenever I see those opportunities because, it was cool to see that. But it's also there's been instances, where you see us on TV, during the pandemic, On My Block on Netflix was like the number one stream show for a while. And, that was predominantly Hispanic.
Exactly.
Cast, you know what I'm saying? And, you also have other movies that have hit the screens. Like I think Lowrider was like a limited release. And like I went to go watch it. Like, I wanted to see it because it was us on the screen.
Exactly.
But, I think as time progresses, people they're people within business. know the numbers. They see what's happening. They
The
see the
Hispanic
buying.
community,
Exactly. And
the
that's why
Hispanic support is crazy.
They see the buying power. You know
Exactly.
what I mean? Like, you know,
Yeah.
money talks at the end of the day. And that's what I
we,
mean.
we just go to fucking like as simple as explanation as there is the World Cup. Mexico is always one of the top 3-4 countries to have the most fans in whatever country where they're hosting
Regardless.
it's always the fans there, and that's why Mexican bro. And that's not even. I don't even think that number is right because they don't count the amount of Mexicans that go from the U.S. to whatever country because technically it should be like 50% of the ones that come out of the U.S. are Mexican too.
yeah.
So-
I mean, and I don't want to like, you know, what I'm about to say. I don't want to make it like a race war thing, but like,
It's not.
but you know, Earl Spence Jr. is from Dallas, or he's from DeSoto.
Mm-hmm.
He
Yeah.
fights at AT&T Stadium. He fights Mikey Garcia, does 40,000 people, right? Or
Yeah.
38,000. He then comes back around and he fights Danny Garcia, who's a Puerto Rican fighter, does less than that, right? But
Mhm.
still does a healthy number at AT&T Stadium.
Yeah.
Canelo Alvarez, who's not from Dallas, Texas, or DeSoto, Texas, comes in and does the record attendance, 75,000 tickets. And he doesn't even speak English.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Or not proper English. So, you know, this has been the never ending. You know, when we, you know, I used to,
because we spend the money, bro.
I'm a big boxing fan. And I said, man, let's dissect Floyd Mayweather, who claims to be the pay-per-view king of all time. Let's dissect his numbers. How many times has he sold over 1 million without a Latin fighter that he's fighting? I'll tell you, the only fighters that he's fought that did over 1 mil was Shane Mosley, right? That was a good fight, by the way.
Yeah.
Then he fought
Manny
Pacquiao, who, you know, one could argue he was adopted by the Mexican fight fans because he fought nothing but Mexicans coming up.
Yeah.
With
His style was
Morales,
very
Pereira,
Mexican,
and you know, Marquez, right?
Yeah.
Marquez, for real.
And so, you know, a lot of people really, and you know, he was adopted by the fight fans. And then Conor McGregor. You know what I'm saying? Those are the only people he's ever been able to fight. And Conor McGregor was
That's just a mix of
spectacle.
both fans.
yeah, it was a
making-
spectacle. It was a sideshow. So really, like, he's only really done it with Pacquiao and Mosley.
Mhm.
Like everybody else, Miguel Cotto, Oscar De La Hoya, Canelo Alvarez, those are all guys that padded these numbers to make him be this pay-per-view king.
Exactly.
You know,
And you say that it's not a race war because we look at him as still the GOAT. You know what I mean?
I
And
don't.
you don't? Oh.
Nah,
Nah, I don't see him, bro.
I
You
see him
speak
as-
for yourself.
I s-
You're a cash
Well,
flow.
at the end of the day, the point is that I don't
He's
see
great, though. He's great.
exactly. I don't see it as, oh, we made you. You know what I mean? It's not a race thing at all.
But but he's a businessman and he
Exactly.
recognizes that he needed a dancing
support.
partner that was Mexican that to be able to sell some of those pay-per-views, or that was Latin to be able to sell some of those pay-per-views. That's the truth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you know, Oscar De La Hoya was the A side whenever they fought.
Damn, for
And,
real.
you know, Oscar De La Hoya was the cash cow. And it's not taking anything away from him. You know, Floyd Mayweather was great, but, you know, respect the buying power that we bring to the table as well. Because even when Earl fought Mikey, you know, that was a big Mexican support system out there. You didn't do those numbers whenever you fought, you know, Sean Porter. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just the reality of the situation, man. Like, I'm just,
It's crazy.
because I try to create perspectives and I try to let people know what it is. And there was a clip that went viral from one of my interviews earlier this year when I interviewed Bun B, and you know we talked about Mexican Americans, and he says nobody supports like Mexican Americans do. It's a known fact. And when Bun B said it, like everybody like took notice, and it's like, bro, like this has like been the story of life. Y'all just don't ever keep up, but
Yeah.
as we're starting to become more prominent and or you know we're starting to have more representation across the NBA, you know, across the you know whatever all sports spectrums and music and all these other fields, movies, like,
UFC.
Yeah,
Oh,
champion.
UFC.
yeah, dude. I mean, people like, come on, bro, like,
Yeah.
And honestly, even like I've been burning my head, but also because now that we're talking about, I brought up the Marvel. It's not also just in. I feel like a lot of people think it's just in America that like classism or racism like between people are always like it's only in the U.S. This happens only in the U.S. Like I was watching an interview with Denoke, which is the actor that plays Namor in the Marvel movie, the Black Panther, and he talks about he's big right now. A lot of people hate him or not hate him or dislike him. He's causing a lot of controversy in Mexico because there's a lot of favoritism towards white actors in Mexico. even though 80% of the population is dark brown skin, you know?
Yeah.
And you see that in Mexico happen is like, it makes it seem that it's not just us, you know, it's not just America, it's everywhere in the world. It's like that. It's just not put to light as much as it is over here because of social media, how big it is here.
Yeah.
I mean, over there in Mexico, it's big as well, but you know, we just kind of pay attention on a small circle of the things we watch. And it's like it puts it into perspective, like it's not just here, you know, everywhere. There's
no, for
even
sure.
within us, within our culture.
Yeah, like even within our culture, Mexicans, you would never think that as us, as somebody that lives in the U.S. is like, oh, there's racism in Mexico. What the fuck? No, there's not.
For sure.
But then you see him, a big artist that now that he has a big platform, he can speak on this and it's be like, especially because he's dark skinned. He doesn't look like the white race Mexican, you know, that you see in the novela. He's dark skinned and he looks like somebody that works for fucking construction on the side.
He looks like a fucking cousin, right?
Yeah, he looks like my uncle, bro. He looks like my uncle straight
facts.
up.
Like Primo. But see, you know, I think all this, you know, like my good friend was like, hey man, you know, all these interviews you've been doing with, you know, shedding light on, you know, Mexicans and their buying power. You know, I interviewed DJ Paul 36 Mafia, and that clip should be uploaded by the time this goes live. But
nice.
He you know, he mentions it as well. You know, he's like, you know, our number one fan base is Mexicans. Like,
right.
You know, our number 2 streaming country in the world is Mexico.
No way. That's crazy.
And as he's like, you're shedding light on our buying power and what we bring to, you know, how strong we are as consumers. And I was like, you know, it's my responsibility up to a certain extent to shed light on it because, you know, people on the outside looking in, you know, and I've heard other cultures say, you know, Mexicans support each other. And it's like, yeah and no. Right? Because, you know, we respect authenticity, but we are absolutely extremely loyal to what we believe in. And we are absolutely going to get behind something if we really, really believe in it, you know? And I genuinely believe that we've seen that with Canelo Alvarez. We've seen that with, you know, Julio Cesar Chavez, you know, like there's, you know, the legacy of Selena, you know, at this point, you know, like those are things that are made possible because we have a very passionate culture,
right?
A culture that is you know, built off of love and family and really, you know, like that's what it is, bro.
Celebrate.
Yeah, like I don't know how other way to word it. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, don't get me wrong, it's not all picture perfect across the board, but our families are big and they're strong and we stick together for the most part.
Have you ever brought Jeezy over here too, as well? Or no?
No, I haven't, but one day maybe, you know?
Yeah, because he's another, I completely forgot about him, another Hispanic artist that kind of broke the barrier of like just sticking to like the Mexican hip hop side. It's more like more, I guess, more into the African American hip hop.
Well, there's more, you know, there's more guys that are coming up. You know, because I don't want to like take away from some of the other guys, but you know, I think the time, you know, it's approaching, but I also think that you're gonna have to have that balance where you have to be able to speak the language, just enough to let people know, like, hey,
I'm Mexican,
motherfucker, I'm Mexican. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Smoothvega, when is the next SPM gonna come out? You gotta produce him, you gotta create him already, Smoothvega.
You know, I don't know that I ever really care to make the next SPM. Right now, I have an artist I'm managing by the name of XB Valentine.
Nice.
She's Mexican American. She's an LGBT. You know, she's LGBT. As far as like in terms of representing the community,
exactly.
So I tell her all the time, you're a triple minority, you're a woman, you're gay, and you know you're Mexican. So you have 3 audiences that you can speak to, and you just got to take advantage of it and understand the strength that you have within your platform. And you know, working with her has been, you know, really cool and rewarding to be able to use all the relationships and resources that I've had, and then pay it forward to her. And you know, seeing her have some of the success that she's had has been really dope because I'm navigating her in spaces that like the average quote unquote Mexican artist wouldn't be. And so she's doing records with Bone Thugs and Harmony, and she's doing records with, you know, West Side Boogie and with Royce da 5'9" and, you know, whoever else, you know what I'm saying? Like she's opening up for Joyner Lucas, you know, and of course that's an extension of my relationships, but it's also like a testament that I believe in this kid that I feel like, hey, you know what? You could take it far and you could break the mold. You could be someone that breaks the mold, but I mean, I think just with everybody that we have out here that's putting in the work, you know, it'll happen. But yeah, I don't necessarily know that I want to find the next SPM as much as I want to find the first. whoever.
First person of something,
Yeah,
regardless of the genre.
Yeah, for sure, man. Because also as a quote unquote music executive, and part of my aspirations is, as much as I'm passionate about being Mexican American and representing for our people, I do want to also be respected for my mind, as an entrepreneur, as a businessman. So I don't want to limit it to where like, hey, you have to be Mexican.
You don't want to be Disney.
Yeah, like I want to be able to say, hey man, I met a kid that he's freaking, he's Asian, he's Indian, he's white, he's black, he's whatever.
Yeah,
like
you just want to be executive producer that happens to be Hispanic.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Pin it that way for sure. But I get what you're saying, man. It's about, like I said, being Mexican first, but then you want to be American too. You want to be established. You want to go ahead and grow, and then the fact that you know that you have a voice, and a lot of people will resonate, whether you're gay or Mexican or whatever. That's where you want to go ahead, and then that's gonna be organic. You ain't even got to do anything.
Yeah, I want to find it.
Let it happen.
I want to find the talent that's gonna, eventually potentially change the world. Like, I don't care what race it is. If it's talent, and I believe in it, I'm gonna go all in. If they happen to be Mexican, even better.
Even better. That's the cookie.
That's what I'm saying? But if not, it's all good.
Yeah.
How did you tap into the? Because obviously you've always started with music and stuff. So how did you transition into tapping into all the wrestling industry? Because that's a whole different industry.
You talking about the wrestling industry?
Yeah.
Well, growing up, man, I was a big fan of the only thing I've ever been a fan of is, really for the most part, music, passionately, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I love basketball and baseball, but like I mentioned to you guys off camera, Shaquille O'Neal was my favorite player, which turned into Penny Hardaway, which turned into Kobe Bryant. Once those guys all retired and got out the league, so did I. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it just so happens Dirk with him. You know what I'm saying? So, and Tim Duncan. And so like
the GOAT.
So it's like, I watch it occasionally, but I was really passionate about, pro boxing, which I have ties to this day. I have music, and then I have pro wrestling. But like, as far back as my memory can remember, I've watched pro wrestling. And, I know it's not real, right? Everybody will tell you it's not real, but the storytelling aspect, the theater aspect to what pro wrestling is fascinating to me. I've applied a lot of what I've learned from character building of pro wrestling to artistry. And obviously Vince McMahon, in regards to promotion, is my number one influence in terms of a promoter. He's the greatest promoter of all time. Bar none. He revolutionized pay-per-view. And, I can't say enough about how much he influenced me as a young kid, just watching his product and eventually getting old enough to understand the brilliance of this man that has been able to build a brand that has been touring globally for the last 30, 40 years and averages like an outrageous amount of tickets year round on 200 dates.
Damn,
you know what I'm saying? Like, it's insane, But I got into pro wrestling as a fan, and then I was fortunate enough as a promoter to book a few artists that happened to be friends with a pro wrestler in the business by the name of MVP. And MVP.
Shout out to MVP.
Yeah, shout out to MVP, man. MVP and me just got cool, and he happened to be a fan of an artist that I booked, and that was his favorite rapper of all time, which is a rapper by the name of Rakim. And when I booked Rakim, I introduced him. He's like, dude, whatever you need for the rest of your life, I got you. He introduced me to the God MC. I said, say less, And then a few months later, I was like, well, hey, WWE's doing a house show in Arlington. Do you mind, like, introducing my kids
just like
to,
that.
You know what I'm saying? And then we just became friends. I had met R-Truth at a concert that he opened up for because he also does music.
Yeah.
And then after I met him, we got cool. But we didn't really know each other. And then just over the years, like, he had a publicist that was working him, and the pandemic just kind of got, everybody, like, we started connecting with people.
Right.
Yeah. I kind of remember the first, when you mentioned MVP, saying that it's not a real, and stuff. I remember when I was little watching MVP, I think it was the WrestleMania match. I don't remember what match it was, where he got burnt. From the back,
man, I don't even.
I forgot which match it was, but I'm like, damn, my boy got burned. Bro, as soon as you said MVP, it brought to my head that one time that I was over here like feeling bad for him because he burned his back or stuff.
And he checks on me periodically, and He's the one
man,
that's
he's one
always
of the
got.
great fighters.
He's always been the one that gets my son those tickets. You know, he was, you know, he blessed us with tickets to WrestleMania this year. So like, just a good guy, you know. And he also has, you know, his hand in the music. And then recently, I connected with. I don't know if you remember a wrestler by the name of Umaga, but he has a son.
Umaga? Yeah, we're just talking about because he's from is he
So Umaga's part of the Samoan dynasty.
Samoan dynasty, right? Yeah, okay.
But his
gotcha,
son, his son just started wrestling, and his son lives in Houston. And me and him have been talking on the phone, and just, you know, now I'm like just cool with him. Like I said, you just meet people, man, and like
he had that ass to the face finisher, right?
Yeah,
he just straight up runs,
boom. Yep.
Yeah, I remember.
But you know, I've also interviewed a lot of guys because once you meet one person, like it's a fraternity, man. Pro wrestling is like music, man. Like
community.
Once you know one person, you more than likely it's like
everybody done.
It's everybody's accessible at that point. And if I'm a businessman, which I've been able to be a businessman, like MVP was able to connect me with Chris Jericho, you know, for my toy drive.
Exactly.
And, you know, this
and you can bring something to the table too.
Yeah. Well, and I think just like not only within wrestling, but I think in general, I'm probably the most underutilized person in the industry. No, I genuinely mean that because I don't think that a lot of these guys really know what I'm capable of doing. Like,
right.
You know, when people ask me, like, what do you do? I'm like, well, you know, of course I'm a promoter. I could say I'm a music executive.
I can be anything you want.
No, but you know, I'm a graphic designer. I'm a web designer. I do brand management. I do social media management. You know, I do artist management.
Right.
And so like these hats that I wear, it's not just hats that I wear. I do it at a high level, and I've helped build accounts for a lot of different people from different fields, you know, not just musicians, but athletes and
talent acquisition.
Yeah, I continue to like wear those different spaces. So like even these guys within wrestling, and you know, they might see me. Some of them might just think I'm an interviewer.
Yeah,
you know, oh, that guy does interviews, but like it's like, no, dude, like I do so much more. I broker deals. I'm an agent. I do this. You know, they'll just got to learn as time goes on.
I get you,
and especially when they meet you and they don't know you, you start having a conversation behind the scenes, and then you start telling them all the other stuff that you do. You never know who they might know, or they want to venture into other
ignorance is bliss.
And you know,
I try not to tell people what I do.
For sure, exactly.
Who's the wrestler that you still haven't gotten to interview that you want to for sure?
There's a lot of guys,
like a dream come true.
Man, there's a lot of people that I would love to interview. It goes without saying. Like I think pro wrestling is you know, to love of mine. So like there's a lot of people that would say, man, you know, if I interviewed fucking Hulk Hogan or The Rock or someone like Stone Cold, like those are things that you can't just Stone
Cold,
you can't just like, that's like as a kid it'd be meaningful. But if there was one guy that I would just narrow it down to like, hey, you could interview any fucking pro wrestler in the world, it'd be The Undertaker. Yeah, I would do some dope shit with The Undertaker because I know his story, and he actually went to college. He played basketball at Texas Wesleyan University in Fort Worth. So there's that Fort Worth tie that, you know, hasn't really been discussed.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, man, so you went to school at Texas Wesleyan University in 1987?
Exactly.
So what you know about Fort Worth? And we can have a conversation about Fort Worth.
Just like that.
Just imagine everybody in Fort Worth being like, what the fuck? The Undertaker's talking about Lancaster. You know what I'm saying? The Undertaker's talking about
Lancaster.
I just found out Kane is a mayor.
He's the mayor of Knox County over there in fucking...
He's in the government.
Yeah, dude. A lot of
What'd you say? A lot didn't get passed.
Choke.
Yeah. So.
It's
choke
funny.
Slam on your ass.
I heard this saying, and it's about wrestling. I can't wait till FanDuel has sports betting in WWE.
That's funny.
That's hilarious. But it's true. It's entertainment, but it's the art about it. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's part of Americana at this point. You know, I saw a tweet the other day about it was like it was part of Howard I can't even say his name. Howard Cosell, you know, the commentator from the 80s that was the 60s, 70s, whatever, that called all the big boxing matches. And he talked about that in his bio that Vince McMahon had reached out to him in the 80s and offered him a job to be a commentator for the WWF, WWE, whatever, right? And you know, Howard Cosell was very arrogant and was like, fuck, you know, like, I just left boxing. You know, he got fired by CBS for using a racial slur. I'm not going to go and call this, you know, this bullshit fake wrestling stuff or whatever he said. And Vince McMahon was like, well, you know, fuck you then. Like, you're completely wrong by turning me down. Pro wrestling is going to be the biggest thing in the world, and you're going to regret not taking this job. Like, you're missing out on a huge opportunity. I'm telling you now.
Yeah.
Pro wrestling is about to be the biggest thing ever, and he wasn't wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, he wasn't wrong. So it's just part of society at this point. Like, everybody knows that it's predetermined. It's scripted. Nobody gives a shit. There's still 100,000 people at AT&T Stadium.
as a diehard fan, then what did you think of whenever, now that the WWE is bringing in, like, not the usual wrestlers, but also artists like Logan
Bunny.
Paul, Bad Bunny. You know, but and honestly, I'm gonna give you my take. Honestly, they're bringing people that are actually caring about it. It's not just somebody that is taking it like, oh.
A lot of those guys were fans, you know.
They
like
grew up,
like Bad Bunny was like, you know, like Bad
genuine
Bunny,
fan, yeah.
like he has a song called Booker T. Like,
he's
and even before he even got into the WWE, I remember his bars. There were always he would throw in some wrestling references. I was like, oh shit, we always knew he was a wrestling fan.
Right, and there's a lot of guys like that. I mean, a lot of guys that in music that, like, those worlds just talk to each other. You know, and I feel like pro boxing is another one of those worlds that, you know, within music, people love, like, big fights, you know, like, so those worlds all kind of intertwine. And me being a promoter, like, it's all, obviously all this stuff is ran through my mind. Like, you know, one day I want to put together a wrestling event. You know, one day I want to get into, like, more boxing management / boxing promotion, which I've been able to dabble a little bit into. But because I've looked at boxing and I'm like, you know, Al Heyman started as a concert promoter. Jay Prince started in the music industry. He's one of the biggest boxing managers in the game. Like, this is kind of, I'm already on the career path to be there, and just understanding, like, what works in all of this, you know. But, you know, as far as, like, the pro wrestling stuff and seeing them use influencers and to, like, market their product, I think it makes sense from a, you know, media perspective to get as many eyeballs on the product. That is and will always be the end goal for them.
Right.
Is to get as many people talking about it and watching their product so they could do whatever they're going to do with it. Now, you know, seeing Bad Bunny perform at WrestleMania, I was skeptical at first, but yeah, he performed really well. And Logan Paul, man, fucking unbelievable.
Yeah.
He's unbelievable. Like, he's had 3 matches. He's an athlete. He's a natural. Like, people could say what they want about him as a YouTuber, as an influencer, or as a person, but when it comes to what he's been able to do as a performer, top notch. And you can't be mad at that. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, the way I look at it is, as long as, like, and I'm speaking like a really wrestling nerd now, if they're not occupying, you know, a slot on a show, you know, taken away from some of the guys that might be in the back that have worked year round to get that slot, right? If they're not going to perform at a high level, then I have an issue with it. But these guys are performing at a high level and they're bringing a lot of attention. Like, everybody wins. You know what I'm saying? Especially the guys that are in the program with them. Like,
and that's a big thing on the WWE that they hit right on the dot. You know, where it's like
they started
executing it. Yeah, bringing those influencers that are genuinely going to bring fans, and then also they're genuinely into it. You know, they're going to bring that fan base with them, but also they genuinely care about the world.
I mean, it's the beginning. It's since the beginning of the time. I mean, I know that it wasn't like that, you know, since day one. But whenever they launched WrestleMania, they had Mr. T, they had Muhammad Ali,
right?
They had Cyndi Lauper. You know what I'm saying? Like, this isn't new. They've always intertwined pop culture with their product.
But they did stop for a while, don't you think?
They kind of did, because I think, well, it depends on what era.
Also, then the pandemic didn't help, but like, I'm talking about, like, because not that it fell off, but I feel like there was a gray area.
Well, I think it just got stagnant. I think, you know, when you're the longest running episodic series in fucking the history of TV, you know, you're going to get stale. And, you know, like, the way I look at it is, in my analogy with pro wrestling, as a lifelong fan, as far back as my memory can remember, I've watched pro wrestling, which starts at about 3 or 4 years old, right?
Yeah.
Damn.
So I don't drink or smoke. So, like, I have a fucking great memory, considering that, like, I've never been under the influence of anything, right? So 89, 90, you know what I'm saying? I remember vaguely a lot of this shit. Like, I watched this in real time. So imagine.
Damn, bro, did you see Rey Mysterio get unmasked?
Yeah.
Damn. So I remember as a little kid, that broke my heart, bro.
As someone that grew through that, there's a lot more people like me. Yeah. And it, like, you got to think about it. As I grew, and then when I got to 13, 14, 15, That's when the Attitude Era hit. That's when the whole Jerry Springer shit was in. And that's what Stone Cold and The Rock and NWO, all that got. So then that hit. And then, like we basically grew old with the product and it matured with us. And then at some point or another, they went PG. And when they went PG and they started trying to be kid friendly at that point, I'm 25, 26 years old.
Yeah, nobody wants to watch.
And so I'm like, well, fuck, I don't want to watch it. So there was a decline at that point because they quit catering to the people that grew with them and try to bring in the younger audience again. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I feel like now you're seeing a little bit more of a reconnection because there's money in nostalgia. You know what I'm saying? So, and we've been talking about wrestling way too long. I'm telling you, man, I go hard with it because of the wrestling though. Like I know it, I understand it, and I just love it.
No, and honestly, that when you're talking about how like those big superstars left, and I think it had to also do a big reason with like The Rock, the superstars that they were kind of left to
do their own thing,
and especially with Hollywood. You see John Cena.
I mean, for WWE to be able to produce a superstar, fuck that, a megastar, arguably the biggest star in The Rock, says a lot about how
nostalgia,
how fucking well-oiled that machine truly is.
Well-oiled.
Like if Austin would have wanted to do that, I feel like he would have done the same things that The Rock did. But honestly,
I don't know, man. The Rock's he's a charismatic dude.
Yeah, that too.
He has that star appeal, just like, you can't deny it.
That's true.
He's a superstar.
Also,
man.
Austin is more like, like we all love him, but I don't, now that I see it, now that I think about it, like those movies wouldn't have been done good with Austin.
He wouldn't have been good as Black Adam, right?
Black Adam, it would have worked out. We would have to do something else.
Yeah, but you know what I mean, though. Like, I feel like that to me speaks levels and volumes of just how strong, you're right, the eye for talent is, but also how much they build, build superstars. And, that's the goal with anything, right? Like, the goal in any field, and not just in pro wrestling, is to leave it better than you found it, right? And, I feel like that's one thing that I've always been able to take from pro wrestling is like, hey, we want to find talent. When I look for a talent, I'm looking for the equivalent to The Rock in music. I'm looking for the equivalent to Stone Cold or whoever. And sometimes you got to realize like maybe you're not quite ready yet. And because, being in music and being in the entertainment industry as a whole, it's demanding. And like anything else, you have to be extremely obsessed with, wanting to achieve your goals. And I think that obsession with being the best or at very least, succeeding, that is what warrants results.
Yeah, exactly. And what do you think of like not to keep piggybacking on the Mexican side, but now that like you grew up watching Chavo Guerrero, Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, like now the second generation of them, which is Rey Mysterio's son, Dominic, keeping it going with that family. You talk about the Usos, the Samoan dynasty. They're keeping that dynasty there.
Yeah, it's cool, man.
It's great to see it, bro. Honestly, because I mean, Hispanic side. In the WWE right now, I think it's not that much, is there?
Not as much. I mean, you have some of the newer guys. Obviously, like Andrade came along for a while. There was a lot of hope that he was going to be the guy. A few years ago, Alberto Del Rio, he was there. Oh, yeah. You got Santos Escobar there right now. Obviously, Rey Mysterio.
The one that disappointed me was Sin Cara, bro, honestly. Because I thought he was going to do more. Mystico, the one that came from Mexico.
From Mexico, yeah.
Disappointed me.
Well, I think Santos Escobar, he's up there in age, but I think he checks off all the boxes. Like he has the appeal to be that Mexican superstar that they need. But, you've had people like Angel Garza, Humberto Carrillo. Like there's a lot of like lucha libre culture in WWE because, lucha libre, like to me, like it's influenced the style of a lot of the pro wrestlers that you see.
Yeah.
More so in AEW, more so on the independent side, like all that flippity, style, more acrobatic style of wrestling, that all came from Lucha Libre. You know what I'm saying? Like, so.
Yeah, the high fly.
Yeah, and that's why Rey Mysterio is like the super duper OG, right? Because his style of wrestling really influenced the generation of guys, but yeah, I agree with you. Like, you haven't seen as much, representation.
Put me in, coach. Not playing.
Bro, what you gonna be?
But it'll come.
It'll come. Yeah, because honestly, that transition was Sin Cara, Mystico, all of them. It did kind of like fail, but you know, like hopefully Dominic keeps the dynasty going, you know.
Yeah, I think like I said, and then Santos Escobar over there.
Santos
Like,
Escobar, yeah.
I think he's for me the one that embodies it at its best, because a lot of the guys that come over from Mexico or that had a name in Mexico and then eventually come over to the US, they don't learn the language, like clean and speak it. You know, like that's the thing about Ray. Ray speaks both languages perfect. Eddie
Yeah.
Guerrero, perfect. Eddie Guerrero was, like, man, sometimes you go back and watch him,
love that guy, man.
dude's fucking untouchable, bro, because
his character, I don't think nobody's had his character in the WWE.
He's just charismatic, and he represented us. Like, you know, S.A. Holmes, you know, like, you know, fucking coming out in a lowrider. Like, like this dude was us on TV. So for sure, man, you know, but it's cool to see like the next generation of people come in for sure.
No, but yeah, man. It was honestly great talking to you, man. We can keep going on about wrestling, you know. We can go hours, you know. How long have we been recording?
I'm about an hour and 30 minutes.
Really?
That's good.
Yeah.
It didn't even feel like nothing, bro, because honestly,
Damn, that's crazy.
when we start talking about
know,
this, we can keep going all
Well,
day,
man,
bro.
you know, I
Honestly.
appreciate
I mean, it's not gonna be the last time you pull up. Smoothvega.
No, man, you're
for
honestly
sure.
welcome to come anytime. We can. I mean, honestly, we can keep the conversation going all the time. You know,
Yeah, no, I
so
appreciate
that we
you
can.
guys.
We have so many topics we can talk about. But yeah, for sure, man. Hopefully, see you soon again. Anything that you want to promote, that you want to talk about,
You know, man,
recent?
just keep, you know,
Next year.
follow me on Instagram, you know, Twitter, Facebook. It's all the same thing. Smoothvega, Facebook, Smoothvega85. As you guys know or may not know, I have an annual festival that I started in 2021 called Central Popular. I actually named the festival after my mom's record shop. I grew up in, you know, my mom's independent record shop that she owned from the time that I was born up to about 96, 97. I've stated this story many times, like her being a Mexican independent business owner in the mid 80s into the 90s, having a successful business for over 10 years, really was what like planted the seeds for me to be an entrepreneur. Today's actually 13 years since she's passed. So, you know,
Rest in peace.
it's really, really, it's really crazy to be talking about it in that sense. But I named my festival, my annual festival, after her event. I mean, after her store, and it's kind of my way of paying homage to her, right? So the first year, I did an all Latin festival, and I wanted to kind of bring it back because, you know, I spent so many years doing urban music and just doing, you know, hip hop, straight hip hop. Every now and then I work with like a Latin artist, but this was like, I'm gonna do an all Latin lineup. And then in 2022, this year, I brought it back for the second annual. I actually did it on her birthday, and I decided to go a different direction. I booked 3-6 Mafia to headline it, and I had Camille there come out of fucking retirement and seclusion, and he came out and performed, which was amazing. We did right around 3,000 people. So I say that to say, in 2023, I intend to
Do it again.
do the third annual of it. Yeah, I am, and this time I'm going to bring it to Dallas.
That's amazing.
Versus Fort Worth, and I have a strong lineup that I'm working on right now. It's not going to be Latin, and it's just going to be more what I want now, because the first year I kind of wanted to keep it all Latin, but be looking for that. I would say be looking for that. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. As you guys know,
Do you have a set date already, or you don't have a set date yet?
July 29th
Mm-hmm.
is more than likely. Well, that's the date that's already been
To
penciled
be
in.
determined, but around there.
July 29th is what's been penciled in and what's been on hold for the venue. It's what's been communicated to the performers. But I'm excited about continuing that series, and then just keep up with me, man. Like as a promoter, I already have shows booked all the way through July 29th, but I have shows that are going to be announced in the next few weeks for March, February, and all the way in between. So I'm excited about that. And keep up with my YouTube channel, man. Check out some of the interviews. Follow me on TikTok. See some of the stuff that I got going on. Check out XP Valentine. And yeah, I mean, I got an event this upcoming weekend that I'm doing out of the city. I'm going to start doing a little bit more shows in these smaller markets to kind of like gift the smaller markets that don't have those quote unquote big shows.
Big shows, yeah.
And start doing that. So we'll see what happens, man. But
Yeah, man.
Let's
For
go.
sure, for sure, we'll pull up to some events that you have.
For sure.
The one you're talking about, the one
Third annual.
hopefully happens the third annual.
Yeah,
we for sure will pull up, man. Anytime we can support, we're gonna be there.
Heck yeah.
I mean, we're kind of aligned with Up to Something too,
Yeah, man, salute to those
we're always
guys,
talking
man.
to those guys too, So anytime we have a chance to talk to you, man, or hang out or go to events to you, for sure we'll pull up because we'll be up to date with you.
Oh, for sure.
No, I appreciate you guys. You know what I'm saying?
All right, boys. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and thank you so much, Smoothvega. We out. Peace.
Fuck with one of us, the word goes round and how that group will go. Looking at me stupid, slap your bitch ass, don't you stare again. Flying out to handle business, catch me out in Maryland. Richie told me talk your shit, even if it's arrogant. Still got people.